Top 10 Human Trafficking Topics for an Essay. Human Trafficking, Causes and Effects. After drug and arms trafficking, human trafficking ranks third in the international ranking of crime worldwide. This is an illegal type of trade associated with the sale and purchase of people, like other types of trade. People are bought and sold for the purpose of forced labor or commercial sex. Often the victims are either sold by their family members. In your essay on this topic, you could discuss the causes and consequences of human trafficking. How prostitution leads to human trafficking. Prostitution is any act performed to satisfy sexual desires in exchange for services. In your paper, you could consider the causes of prostitution using one of the applicable social science theories, such as Merton strain theory. You could focus on prostitution and pornography as the primary forms of sex trafficking. You can also indicate the steps that can be taken to resolve this issue. Human trafficking in the United States. Human trafficking remains a common practice in the United States. In your paper, you could consider this issue in detail. One idea is to identify victims of human trafficking in terms of their commonalities and associated risk factors. You can also discuss their needs. Another option is to focus on the problems faced by those who fight human trafficking in the U.S. and the causes of those problems. Trafficking of children and women, a global perspective. Women and children are more vulnerable than men, which makes them easy targets for trafficking. Human trafficking and child trafficking, in particular, have increased in many countries. The demand is very high in Asian countries and Latin America. Women and children are usually trafficked to get involved in sex tourism and domestic labor. Women are also trafficked for marriages. In your essay, you can describe the specific feature of child and women trafficking worldwide. Human trafficking in Eastern Europe. The fall of communism in Eastern Europe has led to the rise of human trafficking in Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, and other countries. Socioeconomic disparities, political instability, and organized crime networks are just some stimulating factors. In your essay, you can discuss the impact of these factors on vulnerable populations, including women and children. Another option would be to focus on raising awareness and effectively preventing human trafficking in Eastern Europe. Mexican drug cartels and human trafficking. Mexico is the largest supplier of cannabis and methamphetamine to the U.S., although it also transports other drugs such as heroin and cocaine. High rates of human trafficking are also reported in Mexico, with the most vulnerable groups being women, children, and undocumented migrants. These people are usually tricked with promises of well-paid jobs, but their traffickers are mainly motivated by commercial sex. In your essay, you could focus either on drug or human trafficking or both. Human trafficking problems in Canada. Although Canada has adopted many anti-trafficking laws and policies, it remains a source, destination, and transit country for human trafficking victims. The most vulnerable groups are children, women, and illegal migrants, while forced labor, sexual exploitation, and organ trafficking are typical targets. In your essay, you may focus on how human trafficking patterns and challenges vary across different Canadian regions. Psychotherapy for victims of human trafficking. Human trafficking is not only a crime but also a source of deep psychological trauma for its victims. They need systematic psychotherapeutic help since it is impossible to cope with such trauma alone. In your paper, you could highlight the importance of psychotherapy for human trafficking victims. Another option would be to focus on specific techniques, such as trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, eye movement desensitization, interpersonal therapy, etc. Aftermath of human trafficking in children and teenagers. Human trafficking is widely recognized as a serious problem for the health and well-being of adolescents. According to the International Labor Organization statistics, the annual number of victims worldwide exceeds 40 million, and 25% of these victims are children. Victims spend 20 months in forced labor and 23 months in sexual exploitation. In your essay, you could focus on how the prolonged pressure of adversity often harms young people's mental and physical health. Human trafficking and its social and historical significance. In your essay on the topic, you could argue that the modern practice of human trafficking has a deep-rooted tradition. Colonial countries were notorious for slave trading, creating the transatlantic triangle between Africa, Europe, and the U.S. Colonial heritage also greatly impacted many countries in Eastern Asia, including China, India, and others. According to statistics, the majority of trafficked humans come from countries that were, in one way or another, associated with colonial trade.